But sort of a lot of love to both ways. Paul likes the physical experience is so much better because the atmosphere and stuff like that. So, but I'm going to draw it down to a very difficult question to answer in some ways, or maybe it's quite easy. Who knows? But do you think that the pandemic has had a positive or a negative effect upon the gaming industry? I know this is a really hard one because it's a bit of like maybe half of one, half of the other. Like, if that's your answer, that's fine. But do you think it's had a generally a bit more positive or a bit more negative?
The pandemic or the last 12 months? Because there is a difference. Because
yeah.
I think broadly speaking, the last year has been a positive one for the industry. But I don't think it's been because of the pandemic. I think it's because it's been because of stuff that has happened around it that has resulted in the industry, in many cases, cleaning up its act in ways that was long overdue. We've seen things like Cards Against Humanity removing a highly toxic work environment from there. We've seen unionization occurring within gaming companies. We've seen pressure put, partly inspired by things like Black Lives Matter and increased social conscience on how we present ideas within gaming, which has seen certainly like Wizards of the Coast announce that they are going to try and do better. And they've made some attempts with Tasha's. I know that it didn't go far enough for a lot of people with some of the changes to races, but it's a juggernaut. They're working on it as they go. We've seen a change even within a year within something like Paizo. At the start of the year, we have the release of Agents of Edgewatch, a fun but you could argue tonally deaf adventure path where you play cops. And that's going around to later this year when we are going to have the Moangi expansion, and we are going to have Strength of Thousands. We're going to have adventures set in Black countries, written largely by Black authors, bringing their experiences to that. Mm-hmm. So we have seen this shift within the industry, this idea of we need to do better, we need to bring more voices in, we need to represent better, and we need to treat people better. And that is something that has come through this, not as a direct result of the pandemic, but as a result of pressure of other things that have happened in the world that have had a positive impact on the industry. So that's why I think the last year has been positive.
Okay, right on. And Scott, so do you think do you think the pandemic's had a positive or a negative effect?
In terms of just the pandemic, has it had a positive or negative effect? Even then, I still wouldn't know. I'm still a fence sitter. I'm sorry. I see certain industries and certain part of the industries taking damage, but I see physically more people playing, and that's what I have to focus on. If I went purely on empirical evidence of what I know to be true in my world and that I've seen and that I've experienced with, I've seen more people playing. I've seen more people playing online. I've seen more people that are trapped in houses together, having to, come up with something to do, and then they are playing. All of a sudden, they're rolling dice together. I've seen more people playing. So, that's what I've seen. But it would be deaf of me to ignore all the wider effects as well. So to give an answer on that, James, to give a solid answer on that, I couldn't give you a solid answer.
No, and you are right to attack the question. It is a flawed question, and but it's just a sort of interesting as a tying up point to get your sort of general sort of opinion. So, Ross, what do you think? Do you think the pandemic's had a positive or a negative effect?
I agree with Scott in terms of like it, there's been positives and negatives. The positives are, like Scott said, that more people are playing these games. I've been able to play with my uni mates who they live in Bristol and Bath, and I never got a chance to do that had we started doing every bloody Zoom thing under the sun. And in that way, it's good. Like, you want to bring more eyes to. That's what we want to do. We want to bring more eyes to D&D and TTRPGs, because it was a thing that was snarled upon when you were younger and people thought you were a nerd. But actually now you want to get more eyes and you want to make people play the games because that's what you want to do. Like, and if that means playing it online, then cool. And it has made people play online. But again, the virus has affected the world and businesses and things as a whole, so they negatively has affected that in that sense as well.
Of course, and of course the hard limit of my question is that nobody on this podcast is endorsing COVID or any of the effects of the pandemic or any of the families affected and things like that. It has been a terrible thing, but interesting. And again, the Dangerlings again. Sort of similar opinions. Paul thinks it's positive. Folks stuck at home need something to do, which links into what you said, Scott. Eric makes the point, of course, we haven't even touched on the video game industry. Lots of stuff's been changing and happening there. B Daddy makes a point that going to a pickup game actually causes some anxiety. So actually being online has helped, because all of a sudden you're removing that kind of physical aspect, which we take for granted because we're, performers and actors. But actually, some people, that go into a room full of strangers, that's an intimidating thing for anyone. And I speak for myself in that perspective. So, that's really interesting.
What do you think, James?
I honestly, I'm the same as you guys. I agree with Scott. I'm glad to see more people playing. I'm glad to see more outlets and avenues, like we mentioned earlier, becoming more accepted. So, and this is from a personal perspective as well, playing online. Hey, I never thought I'd do that, and I wouldn't endorse it, but actually for certain situations, and it's been a real benefit, and I've really enjoyed it. Yes, I'd love to get back to the pub and play with my friends, but I like the fact that this has now become an option, and a valid option at that. So in the future, it might be something that I suggest to you guys, or that you suggest to other people, and say like, hey, well, why don't we play an online game? I'm free on Thursday. I can't go out because I'm doing something during the day, but I could hook up with you guys and do a game like that. And I think that's really, really lovely. Yeah. So, but there's also, of course, been a terrible, terrible effect, and the gaming shops closing and everything else. It's a broad issue, but my hat's off to you, all of you. I think you've done an excellent job fielding some very difficult questions, and what a discussion. Thank you.